Today we're chatting with Elizabeth Davie. Now, Elizabeth is a writer, director and teacher, and she's running an intro to stand-up 4-week workshop for us, as well as one about finding your inner clown. The links to both of those are in the description. Please sit back and enjoy the episode. Is there a lot of pressure at open mics?
I don't know there's a lot of pressure, but it's more like you've got 5 minutes and a lot of the audience is other comedians who are thinking about their material. So it's not, I mean, they can be supportive, but it can be a bit like, I don't know, it's a great training ground and I can see there's benefits to it. And I know there's things that I miss about it, like, just being up so regularly and just seeing if you can win people over in 5 minutes. But the stress I found was too much for the benefit. Like it wasn't, and you're spending like 3 or 4 hours sometimes at a gig at night.
Is that waiting for your turn?
Yeah, sometimes like you might be, or at least an hour, like, and it's always at the evening or, and you just got to kiss the ring a lot to try and get a spot. Maybe that's the part I don't like.
Yeah. Do you think, is it something that's good for, like, if new comedians are starting out, go along and try those, but then once you're a seasoned performer in a sense, not like, that sounds like it's phrasing it like it's an arrogance type thing, but not at all. I just mean in the sense that if it's something that stand-up's like what you do and it's not just this new thing that you're sort of
definitely trying. It's so good. Like, I think there's, like, I have the things that I don't like about it, but that doesn't mean it's like, I don't think it's great. Like, and I encourage students when they're learning stand-up to do it.
Yeah.
I do think you need to. If I wanted to build another stand-up show, I'd probably go back and do it. I just found when I was doing clown or doing things that were weird or in a costume, it just became more stress than it felt like it was
open
worth.
mics?
Yeah.
Is that because they were mainly stand-up open mics in that sense?
Yeah, often it is. Yeah, or it's just trying to, I mean, I say that, but it is a great training ground to build like those skills and to like, get yourself across in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I found once I started doing more weird stuff or clown, I just found it quite tiring, like to try and get there and try and get it across and test it. And because you can't do clown without an audience, but it's not its best environment, I think. A stand-up open mic is not the best place for clown.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Do they run like clown open mics in a sense?
There are alternative comedy nights and stuff. It seems to be more booked rather than open mic. I think as well, there's just the volume of doing it, like, just fighting to get stage time and stuff. And it is a rite of passage. I just, I prefer to do things slower, like spend time working with a director, making a show that's like, the hour-long show where I have enough, or my space, my time. And like, I often start my shows on stage to like create the scene. Like, I find it really hard to enter onto stage. I love being there already.
Oh, as the audience comes in.
That's
awesome.
Like, so that's how I started my first show, and then the second show I was like peering through curtains and stuff to try and like, because I find that the pressure of like being backstage and like getting so stressed and then having to jump out and be amazing, like straight up, like, so I'd like to already be there.
That's really cool.
And they're coming into my space.
Yeah. So was that something, did you first start making that choice due to sort of nerves before a show? Or was it like first like a stylistic thing that then you found also just helped with that side?
That was it. Yeah.
That was it?
I found like, I always get nervous before shows. I've never been able to be one of those performers who's like cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
You definitely get more into it. Like you get sort of match fit because if you're doing it a lot. But I've had to learn so many different techniques to like work with stage fright and nerves and things like that. And so I initially, when I started doing it in my first show, Superwoman Money Program, I wanted to be on stage because it was like a seminar, and I actually couldn't be off stage because the venue I had was so tiny that I either entered after everyone else or I was already there.
Yeah.
And so it was actually that initially that choice was because I didn't have a choice, but I loved it.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And I would always have something to do. Like I wouldn't just stand there and sit and look at people, although maybe that is what you do.
Yeah.
But like if you have like a game or something that you're doing yourself as a performer, you get a chance to check in with every audience member as they come in. You get a chance to be already in state, like ready to perform when they all get there.
Yeah.
And there's no big reveal. So, I mean, you kind of can reveal from that, like like my character shifted quite quickly in my first show from what I had been doing. But yeah, I just found it better, like for my nervous system, and also really fun. So that's why I started doing it.
No, I really like the sound of it because, like you say, like connecting to the audience as they're coming in. And even I feel like they'd have the response of coming into the room and being like, well, hang on, hey, wait, has it started yet? What's the,
yeah, exactly.
And even that little just tweak of excitement for them, I think is a really cool thing to experience. And it I don't know, it seems like a really confident way to start something.
Yeah, I guess it is. Like I would always have a ritual pre-show as well. So I warm up the space for myself, and I get myself into that performance zone. Like I'll listen to specific music or I'll do dancing. Like my first show, I would dance like crazy to Kate Bush, Wuthering Heights. And that was my ritual. I had to do that every every show. And sometimes it would be like the show would start a few minutes late. So I'm like, no, I have to do this. But yeah. And then, so then you're ready to go. And then you have that chance to make eye contact or be a bit playful or like introduce yourself to people. There's so much you can do when you're already there.
I really like that idea of the pre-show rituals because I also think that it's something that isn't spoken about too much. Or like you see like, oh, that's a really great performer, I love their work, but you never really hear anything of like the behind the scenes aspect of it.
Totally.
And I also feel with when like students are learning to do something new, there's kind of that element too where you don't really teach them what to do pre-show.
Oh my God, it's so important. Like I could do a whole workshop on it, like, because I've learned to learn so much as well for myself, because I was like, well, this is such a big problem I have where like when I started, I would start in stand-up and I was super wooden, like very disembodied, and like I was all here, and I was like the audience, I was trying not to look at them because they were so scary. So I was like telling my jokes like this sort of ripped it. So like that's how I started, and like luckily I was able to write jokes, so I did get some laughs. But like once I started being able to be more present and relaxed, it was just so much better, and that's why I ended up like loving clowns so much. But being able to work with those nerves, and like it's huge because you get nerves everywhere as well, like but I think it's sometimes as performers we want to make out like, oh no, it's like, I'm just great at this all the time, and it's like, no, if I have a break or a period of time when I don't perform, I'm shitting myself when I go back to perform again. So it's like a matter of like getting into that zone, and that for me, I found the best way for me is a physical zone that my brain follows. So I get my body into like a performance space, a performance zone with different like techniques or movement activities or vocal warm-ups, and then my brain just comes along for the ride.
So does that help your brain switch off initially and then just kind of is it trying to get into that sort of blank state?
Not so much blank, but like I remember one of my friends said once, she's like, clown is a physical state, not a mental state. Like you can't think your way into calmness. I don't think. Like you can definitely think calmer thoughts, but like to actually get your body to calm down or to be up, because you're not actually trying to be super calm. You're trying to be like in like a mixture of calm and ready to go. Like, you just don't want to be like too scared, like fight, flight. But you want to be alert.
Yeah, totally.
So trying to get into that zone is like a specific destination, I guess.
Yeah.
So that zone. So you're not blank, but you're like not. You're kind of in the game.
Yeah, sure.
You're ready to play.
Yeah. I was thinking, is that about sort of, having control of the situation? But I feel like that's probably not right, because I feel like you wouldn't want full control of the situation, because then you're not kind of presently in it.
I think you have to be at ease with not knowing what's going to happen, because I think as well, like with all kind of comedy, I think, but particularly with clown, which is my area, I haven't even mentioned anything about that. I just realized we're recording it. Like, I'll go back. But you are working with the audience. Like the show is alive. It's a living thing. So you might have a script, but if that's just words on a page. Like the show itself is something that there has to be an audience there for it to happen.
Yeah.
And so like they're part of it. So you're interacting with them, and they will make it different every night. Like, so you can have the same things that you're doing every night. You'd have like, your specific jokes or your act or your bits, but they'll react totally differently. And sometimes if you're open to that as well, you can weave that in And like I've had acts where like audience members, I've been interactive with them and they've done something I would never have imagined them doing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much better than anything I would have thought of you doing. Like, that you have to be open to that. So I can't remember how we got to that point.
No. I really like that, because I feel like then if you're open to that, you're not panicking of like, oh no, this is going off the direction of where the show was going to go. Everything's a mess. Oh, what's going to happen? How do I bring it back? Rather than like, no, this is Tonight Show and this is kind of exciting of where it's heading right now. And if it's heading in a really nice organic place, like why sort of put the brakes on that to just bring it back to, like you're saying, what you had written down.
My list, my things. And I think as well, like you sometimes things aren't going well, right? But you have to be present to figure out why.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, I'm just going to truck on forward with what I was going to do that they already don't like.
Don't worry, if I just keep going, they'll get it. They'll jump on board. I'm just going to keep going.
Exactly. And like every so often that will work because people will kind of get on board with someone who like just loves what they're doing, even if they suck. But it's better if you're sensitive.
Yeah, I think so. That reminds me of a few times I've seen some, maybe, I think it was more stand up, but they were like, all right, here's an edgy thing I'm going to get into. And then the audience is like, oh. And not that of like, oh, interesting, edgy. It was like, oh, like, well, please don't. And then they just kept going. They're like, well, I've got my 5 minutes, so I'm going down in a ball of flames. And it's this idea of like, I've got to bomb. Like there's honor in bombing and like, doing that. But I feel like if it's content that the audience is visibly hating.
Yeah, I mean, it's an angle, but like I think it depends what you're going for. I mean, it's like I think maybe sometimes people think they're Bill Burr. I don't know if you've seen that bit where he just like wails on the audience for 10 minutes.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like that's. But like, I wouldn't ever try that myself. That's not my vibe. I think, you can have something that you can win people over to something that they don't initially like. I'm not saying like necessarily edgy stuff, but like you could be doing something and people are like, what's this? And you can win them over, but you're not going to do that by like blasting it at them without listening. Like, it's this weird mix because you need to have a confidence and love for what you're doing, because otherwise no one's going to care. Like if you seem too desperate, like please laugh. No one wants to. They're
having
like,
a like
what's
the applause sign.
Or people like a bit, it's a bit yuck. But if you're like, this is funny, they don't like that either. So you've got to have like, there's a middle ground.
Yeah.
But I had one of my teachers described it really well. She was like, the audience is like, say it's like a baby and the baby's crying. Mm-hmm. You don't go, fuck you, baby. I'm really funny. You don't get it. Like, you are like, don't worry, baby. I'll get some keys. Like, do you like keys? And you play other games to like win them over.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're never angry at them because I mean, someone who comes to watch you is someone who's given you their time.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a valuable thing.
And it's such a nice thing. It's like they could be doing absolutely anything else, but if they've come to see the show and they're paid to see it and everything, like
they might not even have paid, but they've come. And like when you think about all the different things they could be doing with their time. Like, there's all the things they could be doing in their house, with their friends, their family, like how busy we all are, how much no one likes to go out anymore. It's a big deal. And there's something really amazing about live performance where it is kind of like almost spiritual. Like it's like there's this energy that you can't get elsewhere. And if you've gone and seen a live show, how much everyone's laughing and how you'll laugh so much more. And if you watch a recording of that, you might be like, like I can watch like world-class comedians on a Netflix special and be like, heh. And that's as much as it'll actually get out of me. But if I was in the room with everyone else, it would be insane. It would be electric.
Oh, massively. So
there is something with comedy where that, like, particularly with something like stand-up or clown or that's made for a live performance, it's so incredible to have everyone there. And it's like everyone's sitting there and they're all facing the one direction. They're all focused on one thing and they're there purely for enjoyment. Like that's amazing.
And I think especially in improv as well, it's like so much like that too, that if you watch a recording, like sometimes they can be enjoyable, but other times you just lose all of that sort of magic that happens in that room. And I find like if someone maybe tells a stand-up or like says, oh, I went to see this comedian, they tell this joke about this and this, and it was so funny. The other person's not going to probably get the same response because it's not being delivered actually by that comedian, but they might go like, oh yeah, cool, that's a funny idea. But with something like improv, whenever people talk about it outside of the show, it's just always like, dude, what about the guy with the tree? That was so good. And you just see people go like, oh,
it's
I wasn't
like
there.
telling you about some of your dreams.
Yeah.
Like they tell you something about your dreams, you're like, no one else was there.
Yeah, and you're like, it was so funny. Yeah. But it's like, and I think that's what's really, really nice, I guess, you know, about live shows and what probably keeps people coming back a little bit, even if they are a bit more resistant now.
Oh, yeah. I think there's something about it that, I mean, we've been doing it for thousands of years. Like we've been making theatrical and theatre and performance for such a long time. And like it's common across all cultures. Like it's something, and like laughter is something we all do. Like it's the same in every language. So like, I think it is a really big human drive. That's something I guess I feel really passionate about with things like play and laughter. It's like, it's the first thing that we sort of are like, oh, I don't have time for that when we're busy. Yep. But it's actually what gives us the energy to do all the other shit we're meant to be doing. So like, it's, yeah, I really care about it, obviously. But
well, I think it also relates to like throughout COVID and everything that, you know, suddenly everything else shut down. And it's like, what do people do? They go back, they're at home all the time. They like to be entertained with things, and that, you know, it's consuming all that. So I think you do maybe need moments like that to sometimes shine a light on how important it is.
Oh, so much.
And reflect on that.
Yeah. And like what, you know, like no one gets to be in a Netflix special without having done all of those like little friend shows or open mics or all that kind of stuff. Like that's how you get there. So it's not like you don't get Beyonce. She doesn't just spring fully formed into existence. Like, you know, so it's so important to have that time and that like those experiences live. And I think a lot of artists like to perform live. Like I mean, I've done things on Zoom and video, and I always find it harder because I'm like, you're pumping out all this energy, but it's not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And there is definitely an energetic exchange when you're doing a show, like when it's live.
Do you find as well that there sometimes can be this idea that, oh, it comes really easy to you. It can't, you know, it must just be simple. Like when people look really confident or comfortable in sort of their space. But yeah, you don't see like all the work that went into someone getting to be able to get into that state to perform.
Oh my God, totally. I think it's like, and it's kind of unfair because it's like this smoke and mirrors because it's like, well, look behind the curtain. Like I'm actually like just as, like I'm shitting myself just as much as anyone else would be beforehand, you know, or like, yeah, this is a 1 hour a day. And like when I'm touring a show, I'll end up like doing almost nothing because I'll just be like resting, stretching, preparing, like having, like meditating, like, because that's personally what I need. Like I know a lot of performers can be like way more like energetic, but for me, I'm like, if I'm going to be really good in that hour, I need to like put all my energy into it. So people don't see that. But again, it's so much learned skills. Like when I first started clown, it was like how many years ago? Like 6 or 7. And it was awful. I was so terrible. Like I sucked so hard. I did like a 5-day workshop and I got like one thing I did was funny on the final day. Like, so I just turned up every day being like, why? And, but I could feel when I did it, I was like, this is so important for me. There's something really brittle and tight about me that I can feel is being like stretched through this. So it's like a crack, you know, in this armor. And so, yeah, I just kept going with it.
Was clown the first discipline that you got into, or did that come after stand-up? I
started in stand-up. Okay. Yeah, so I did stand-up for a few years, and because I'm already kind of wordy and heady, like that was fine, but I wasn't using my body much. I wasn't tapping into like all this other kind of resource and like way of being funny that's more I don't know. I guess for me, it's more authentic because it's all of it. Like it's all of me. So, but yeah, I'd done stand up for a few years and then well, this is a kind of long story. Do you want me to tell it about how I got into clown?
Of course. Yeah. Okay. Definitely. We got time.
All right. So yeah, I'd done stand up for a couple of years and I was very written. Like I would always write my jokes out and I would learn them and then I went traveling. Actually, this was before. So this was before I started stand up. I went traveling and
So just to clarify, had you started writing anything at this stage?
No, I was too scared to tell anyone that I wanted to do stand-up.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I think I was about 24, and I didn't want to tell anyone that I wanted to stand up because it seemed so self-important. Like, I thought I was funny.
Yeah.
And so much pressure. So I think I finally admitted to my friend that I wanted to, and she was like, yeah.
Were you nervous when admitting that? Like,
yeah. I was like, ooh. Anyway, so then I went traveling for a couple of months, and I met loads of performers while I was traveling, just by chance. Like, lots of people that I met and clicked with were all performers. And one particular time I was in Paris, and I had been out all day, like walking around, and I was really tired, and I was going to get a falafel from this famous falafel place. And I got there. I walked 20 minutes in the wrong direction, and so I was in a feral mood by the time I finally got to the falafel place, because I was starving already, and I had like 40-minute walk. And this group of people swooped in just in front of me, and I was like, "Ooh." So
salt in the wounds at that
stage. Exactly. So they all got their falafels, and then I went and got mine. And we came outside because there was nowhere to sit. We were just standing around outside. And I started eating, and one of the people from the group came up to me, and he was like, "Oh, are you with us?" And I said, "No, who are you?" And he was like, "Oh, we're all at clown school."
All right, cool.
And I was like, "Tell me more." So I hung
Maybe
out.
I am with you.
Yeah, exactly. I could be persuaded. So I hung out there with them for the evening and chatted and found out all about Gaulier, which was a school in France.
Yep.
That they were all students at. And so then I stayed in touch with Michael, who was a guy I'd first met, and I kept on moving and left. But I made this sort of joke promise. I was like, when I have a midlife crisis, I'm going to go to clown school.
Yeah.
And I tell people that as a joke, like, and then I did. So I came back to Australia. I started doing stand-up, and then I just was having a really rough time. I was in a very bad relationship, and I don't know, I was just really lost in my life. And a friend who I'd met through improv, Shannon, through the Improv Conspiracy when I was studying there, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to Gaulier for the summer school." And I was like, now's my time.
Yeah.
I've got to do it.
Everything's opened up. Everything's
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I just felt like I get this prompting where I can't not do it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not so much that I feel like I have to do it. It's that I can't not do it.
No, I get that. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had no money. I had to borrow money to go. I like went there for the 1 month summer school, and it was like, yeah, I mean, Gaulier is not my favorite teacher. I think he's okay. I think some people really like him, and that's great.
Is it as brutal as everyone
yeah,
sort of
he's
says
pretty
it is?
nasty. And I think like it doesn't need to be. I think that's the thing. But that's his style, and some people love it. Yeah. And like, so if you do, like, more power to you. But yeah, I was already in such a low place when I got there that he did not break me down at all, because there was nothing to do. I was already like, I already think I'm a piece of shit. He's like, cool, okay, we can work with this.
And it's like, all right, Elizabeth's ahead of everyone else then.
yeah. She's come. Here's one I prepared earlier.
She's come prepared.
This is rubble, like, so I don't need to do anything. So I actually didn't have a bad time, because I was already like, I had no ego to lose in that one. So I was like, I don't even think I'm funny. I don't know why I'm here. So I didn't find it as hard, I think. But yeah, and the big thing that I loved about Gaulier was I was there for a month, and I was with other people who loved clown, and I was doing that for a month. So it was just like amazing to spend that much concentrated time doing something you really care about, with other people who also care about it.
Yeah, I feel like I went over to Chicago to IO to do their summer intensive for improv, and it was a similar sort of vibe. Like, you're there for 4 or 5 weeks, and like everyone's into this thing. You're doing it every day, seeing shows at nights, and not like talking about it 24/7, but like everyone's really, really into it. And I think that environment's it's a really, really fun place to be in.
Yeah, totally. It gives you just so much juice, I guess. And I found I got looser, like, because that's my thing. I get tight and clenched. And so I was like, yeah, I was just having more fun. And so I found like tiny elements of what would eventually be my clown while I was there, but there wasn't much. Like, that is something I would say about the summer school at Gaulier. Like, you don't learn as much as you would with another teacher. I found my favorite teacher is Giovanni Fassetti. It's like chalk and cheese. He's incredible.
Yeah.
but yeah, so I did that, and then I came back and I wrote my show. My first show, Superwoman Money Program. I had actually done a stand-up show before that, but I kind of don't count it because it was so small. And like, Superwoman was like my first proper show where I brought in like clown, sketch, improv, stand-up, everything.
And this was Fringe, or was this Comfest?
I did it at a few different places. So I did it at Fringe first, Melbourne Fringe, and then I took it to Perth Fringe, and it won an award. It won the best comedy, and then I took it to Adelaide and Melbourne Comedy Festival. I can't remember if it was in that order, but yeah. So I toured that around a bit, and that was about the gender super gap.
Yeah.
And I like a challenge, and then I kept going into clown more because I did a month-long intensive with Giovanni.
Yeah.
And I studied with another, like as many teachers I could find. I worked with Diana Fleischer, who's incredible, and Pedro Fabiao. They're some of my favorites. But so I did a month-long workshop with Giovanni, which his process is to find the story your body wants to tell. So you find a clown that's based on your idiosyncrasies. It's like almost like an alter ego. So the way you move and the way you speak and all these things, the way you hold yourself, like all of that is amplified to find the clown.
And just to sort of clarify here as well for people, especially very new to clown, it's not like you're going in and every single day, every single exercise, you're coming up with a new character. Like, I'm assuming there's some of that, but it's really about finding one that you're sort of taking through over time and developing. Is that right?
Yeah, it can depend. So I guess like clown is it's such a big topic, and everyone has like different ideas about how it is exactly. But I guess like the kind I'm talking about, or the kind I've studied, is that theatrical clowning, and it's from the school of Jacques Lecoq. So he worked a lot with the body. So he wrote a book called The Poetic Body, which is really amazing. And he started a school in Paris, which is where Golia studied and also where Giovanni studied, and a lot of clown teachers studied. So that's a sort of common ancestor.
Yeah. Are they considered like kind of I was going to say the Godfather? That makes it seem like sort of grim, but like
of
that sort of role in the clown world.
Yeah, I guess so, because it was something where he kind of really brought it into theatre again, like this was the 60s. So it had been something that was more like in circuses or different places. It had been in the theatre, I think, but he really brought it into the theatre and was bringing it in and using the body to find it. And so clown, I guess, is, how would I describe it if I'm trying to make an elevator pitch? It's like finding what makes you authentically funny. And it's a part of you that's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
So it taps into that humanity, that shared humanity and stupidity. Like it's, what is it? Giovanni says, wisdom is infinite. Wisdom is finite. Stupidity is infinite.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So like, so it's your unique, stupid self. And it's a lot like, I find, for me anyway, it's a lot like with my inner child. Like you get a lot of those elements. Often things you repress are in the clown because they're the things that sort of you push down, and that gives them a lot of energy. And it's a weird kind of chemical process watching clowns being born, because you kind of know when they're there and you know when they're not.
Yeah, right.
And so it's about trying to get you into a state where you can let it out.
Yeah.
Like, and you can drop into that state and be that character. So you can sort of build a clown character, like in a more Giovanni's like sort of somatic kind of way that he works, where you find the form, which is the body shape of the clown, and the voice and the costume and all those things. But you can also like just find the clowniness in yourself. Like I teach workshops like with you, where you're more just tapping into that energy and starting to get to know it or find it, which doesn't take anywhere near as much work. Like it can just be like in group exercises or games and things, and you'll start to see it come out.
Yeah. I imagine that'd be very satisfying when you're working with people and seeing them really sort of get lost in that process and see that gradually starting to come out more and more. Like it sounds to me like an art form that I'm sure there's technical aspects like with anything, but I always like things when it is kind of pushing the person's like individuality to be part of creating whatever it is you're sort of working towards, rather than like, here's how it's done, follow these dot points, and here are your 3 options. Do you want this
These
clown, this
are the
clown, or this
rules.
clown?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. It's like finding that what's authentically funny about that person, and it's going to be so different for everyone. And it's different, like you can have different clown characters at different times. Like you might have a different one that comes out. If I did another workshop, I'd find another one, but and they're all different aspects. But fundamentally, the part of me that is clowny is the part that's like stupid, impulsive, authentic, fearless, excited, connected. Like that's the kind of state it is. It's like, yeah, quite childlike in its sort of essence, I guess, but totally free. Like I've never felt, it's the most incredible feeling when you get fully lost in it. It's like, you feel bulletproof.
Yeah. Is it something that you started with stand-up and then did clown as like, I guess, some sort of complement to that, but then really sort of fell down the rabbit hole there? And then like, would it, just the way you're talking, would I be right in guessing that you maybe like prefer clown? Not to like choose one or the other, but that's really like where you feel at home the most?
I think so. I think they complement each other really well. So it's not like one doesn't do the other, but I've definitely fallen down the rabbit hole. Like it was like, oh, and kept going. Like it got to the point where I did a full red nose clown show for an hour, like with the nose, so definitely I fell down the rabbit hole, but I think you can bring so much kind of clowny elements to stand up, and it just makes you so much freer and gives you like this whole remit of things you could do that you might not have thought of if you were being more like, I tell jokes, and obviously comedians do physical parts and they do act outs and stuff, but you can just, oh my God, you can put so much into that through clown, and it can just give you that sense of touching into that authenticity in stand-up. But I think on the reverse, like my clown, like I use my stand-up in my clowning because my clown's quite chatty. Like she speaks way less than me, but talks a lot more than other clowns. And I did elements of that through the show I did. Like I had her doing stand-up, so her version.
Yeah, right.
Which was very bad, which was the funny, like it was funny because it was so bad. But yeah, she was like, oh yeah, I can do this easy. I can do stand-up. So yeah, and I think that writerliness that you can get in stand-up can really help when you're shaping a show or you're shaping a clown bit, because you can sort of start to see the beats or the crescendos that need to happen and stuff.
Yeah, I really like that, and I think it's a common element that from any instructors we're talking with, or any performers or anything, that they're always talking about not just doing one thing and something else. Really, it's like a weird thing. It's like not doing something else just to improve your sort of core area, but just doing something else to just try and expand things a little bit, and then see what you can create later. Like when you're talking about it's not, if you're doing clown or if you're doing stand-up, there's elements of both that are sort of coming into what you're doing.
Oh, totally. And I think it's kind of like with diet. Like if you want a healthy body, you eat a healthy, like a varied diet.
Yeah.
You don't just eat like bread or meat or vegetable. Like just one thing. You wouldn't really be healthy if you only ate carrots. So you kind of need that, I think, for your health, but mind, creativity, like you need to be feeding in other things. And I think it's so important to be able to find stuff where you don't have an agenda. Like it's hard because like in the world you need to have like you go to work so you can earn money. Like you don't go to work for fun a lot of the time. And you might be putting on a show because you're like, I hope people come. But ultimately I think it's the thing that is so important, or like that purity of like creativity or the art, is when you're making it because it's just, you just really love it and you want to. And like, yeah, that is probably the core of it. And I think those kind of things end up being more watchable and people want to come because they're like, you could be doing something very badly, like where you're not very good. Like maybe you're a really bad singer and you could be singing really badly, but if you do it with enough joy, like people will watch you.
Yeah, totally.
And it's really like, it's contagious. That enthusiasm is contagious. So I think being able to access that without it needing to be like, and this is for this, and this is for, you know what I mean? And they're like, it's sort of accounting process of why you're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's elements of that come across from, like, I guess when we're young, we go to school and it's like, there's the next step, you're doing this to get to this to this. you get to high school and it's like, what do you want to do at uni? What do you want to go do there? And you're always thinking of like, when I complete this, this is what I'm going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
When I complete, this is what I'm going to do with it. And then you sort of get out of that world in a sense, and you're doing like classes or workshops in something. I just wonder if there's like residual things in everyone's heads of like, I'm doing this to like mark an achievement, and then what am I going to get out of it? But then really pushing back against that and sort of like, I don't know why I'm doing this, and leaping into that side, I think is just a really fruitful way to take these things.
And it's like freedom. Like you'd hope that you would feel like that, where you would just do something for the joy of it. Like I think that's one of the things, that's why we have art.
Yeah.
You know, like if you had just a specific agenda, you would be making a decoration. Like you wouldn't be making a painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so, I think having things just for the pure joy of them or the love of it, or because you really feel like you want to or you need to, like that's a part of what it is to be human. And I completely agree in terms of schooling. I think we're very programmed, like, and there's very much a mindset of like, input, output, like, and it being like accounted for, and like, and that thing of achievements of it being like some of my favorite shows that I've ever done have been like to like 4 people.
Yeah.
Like, which sounds like a failure, but when I won the award, I was nominated on the back of one of those shows to 4 people.
Yeah,
like one of the people was a judge, you know. And I had the most incredible time. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, there is nowhere I would rather be. I'm fucking loving doing this show. I'm here in Perth. No one who knows who I am. Like, it's basically a holiday where I get to do my show. Like, it's so much fun. And yeah, that is the time when I think you're most, it is sort of authentic. And it's hard when you feel, because there's so much conditioning and pressure from the world to like, behave in that way of like, and then I do this and then I get that and then I do this and then I get that. And I find it's hard to push against that too. So I think it is important to have that thing of like, you know, connections or community or other people who do that, or like to have enough resolve to feel that you can keep pushing against just doing the like things, the box ticking that you're meant to be doing.
Like, I think about it in the sense that, like, if you're a kid, you're running around playing, you do not give a crap about anything else.
No.
You're just like, sweet, playtime. You don't even think, when's playtime going to end? What do I maximize my playtime now? Like, you just, you're all into it.
You know,
and
like,
then
I'm going to eat these marshmallows. I'm not saving them.
Who cares? This is, we're doing it. But then when you become an adult and there's all these pressures of the world in every single facet of your life coming through, then sometimes these things can feel like guilty pleasures, or it's like, I'm being a bit selfish by doing this, so I need to attribute a reason as to why I'm doing it. And therefore, I'm justifying it to myself.
And I will kill the thing.
Yeah.
I will slowly drain the joy out of the thing.
Yeah.
By making it a chore. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And like, I think, like, I have that with things like clown. I was like, I can't explain exactly why I need to do this. I need to go and spend like how many $1,000s going to be yelled at by a man in France.
Yeah.
I could do that for free. Like, I could go and hang out in front of Flinders Street Station. Like, you know, but no, I'm going to go there. And I recently, in the last year, I've been studying shiatsu, which is like a form of Japanese bodywork. Oh, cool. And I started on a whim. I was like, I need to do that. And I saw an ad for an open day and went to the college, and it's incredible. And I'm actually finding all these parallels with like clown and with using the body and like, but yeah, I can't explain exactly why I'm doing it, but I know I have to.
Yeah, totally.
So again, it's one of those things. But again, on paper, it doesn't look like it's useful.
For Space and Earth, we have a Discord server, which is completely free to join. If you're not familiar with Discord, basically it's a place where you can have an online community and you can chat about things in various channels. So if you want to jump on there and talk about improv, talk about sketch, talk about stand-up comedy, talk about acting, talk about the latest TV show you've seen, you can do that in different channels. So we'd love to have you join that. The links are available at spaceandearth.co. And like I said, completely free to join. We'd love to see you there. And like, I'm by far, like, I'm the opposite of a financial advisor in any stretch. But I feel like the more we're sort of talking about this, the more it seems to me of like, if you're putting whatever, you know, income you have, if you're putting a portion of that aside to be like, this can go to like a class like this where I don't need it to actually pay off in any specific way. I don't need to, like, whatever you can do. I'm like, I want to start doing this now. Where it's like you sort of more actively going, that's fine to like spend this money to do this thing, to just like, you know, be free and experience something
Oh my
new.
God, totally. It's better than health. Well, it's another form of health insurance,
Yeah.
because it will keep you healthier, like to be in that state. But I think, yeah, I mean, we spend so much money on so many different things, like, and it's really just like what matters to you. I love courses and I love learning and workshops and stuff. So that's probably what I'm going to spend my money on, and I'll buy all my clothes from an op shop for $2. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
that's like, so it really depends on your values, I guess. But like, I do think that it's there's so much conditioning and so much programming that's not just like through school, where it's like, oh, we were conditioned this way through school, because maybe you could then be like, oh, I'm going to like unpick that, I'm going to decondition myself from that, I'm going to see the world differently. But everything coming at you is the same, like being at a job, being at like all the things you see in the news or read in the media, like everything is reconditioning you. So it's a constant effort to hold a different viewpoint or something that's outside of that. So then I think that's why I find that community aspect, or like doing those things, so helpful, or having those goals, having shows or workshops I'm doing, or like I've started doing recently, like a session called Play in the Park, where we meet up, we play clown kids games for an hour, and then we go home.
Great.
Like, you know, and like once a week, that like is like a tune up. It's like for that free impulse, I guess.
It's just play. Like what all this seems to be coming back to, and like drawing back to the kids thing. It's just play. It's like kids get so much out of playing. Adults also get so much out of playing. You don't just lose that benefit because you get older.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, I don't have time for that. It's like, well, if you can make some time for it, you will get so many benefits from that.
It's nuts, because like it's like I'm pretty sure it's enshrined in the UN like children's convention that children have a right to play.
Yeah.
Which is as they should, because it's so important, and it's like important for development and language and social skills and everything. But yeah, like you say, we don't lose that need. Like maybe we don't need it as much, but we still need it.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it just sort of kills your spirit if you're not connecting in some way. Like it doesn't have to be with specifically with play or clown or something, but like connecting with something that's purely for joy or for like your personal fulfillment, something that you love.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, why else are we here?
And like I started feeling that when I started doing improv. Because before then it was sort of working in design, running a small agency with some friends, and we were like always sort of doing more work than what we were capable of. And I don't necessarily mean that in a praiseful manner.
Yeah, as in like it was a dangerous.
Yeah, it was like always overstretching, or like late hours, all nighters to get things finished, all that sort of stuff. And then doing improv just felt like this thing where suddenly it's like, am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to just come here for a few hours a week and just completely let go of everything and just play and have fun? And then you do that for a little bit and you're like, oh, this is now a key part of my life and I am going to continue to do this.
Yeah. You recognize the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I completely agree. I think like it's so freeing, and it's, I just know from my own perspective, like my own journey with it, I was, so stressed and like, clenched. There's a thing in Chinese medicine, which I'm studying through the shiatsu, of like the wood element in your body, or the wood, we embody all the elements, and like the wood element is very like flourishing and like stretching and growing and stuff. But when it's not working to type, or when it's not healthy, it's like
yeah.
And that's, I can feel that in myself. Like if I have a long time without play, or without like that sort of free movement as well, like the movement, the like joy, the like no specific agenda, just playing, doing something that's purely fun. I get all like tense and stressed, and like my brain doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything.
I feel like there's just so many fascinating like disciplines, art forms and stuff which you can learn so much from. And like I feel initially, especially at school, like it was a lot of peer pressure to like, not do drama, not do that, like be cool, play sport, like all that sort of stuff. And I feel
do maths methods so you get a job.
Yeah. And I feel like when I started getting into improv, in a sense, like some friends that I had at school, they would have been like, why the hell would you do that? That's so stupid. This, that, everything else. That's so weird. Oh, whatever. And I think then you then end up unintentionally holding some of those views towards these other things. But then I think the first thing that I tried in this sort of realm, which is improv, that then opened up my mind to sort of everything else. So now it's like when you're talking about these, what was it called? Shiatsu?
Yeah, shiatsu, yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating. Whereas I think, 10 years ago, I would have been like, no, that's a bit weird. I don't know. That's whatever. But I think it's so nice to just be in that space where you can you hear something new and you're like, oh, what can we learn from that? What can I take from that? That's like, rather than just instantly dismissing it as like, oh, it's some kooky thing that, it's for weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I think, like, with clown, like, I've been, jumping around on stage wearing a red nose. Like, it's like I'm sure there are people that I went to high school with who were like,
yeah.
But yeah, you get to a point where I guess you just don't, you care more about doing the thing than you care about what people think.
Totally.
And I think that's been a really good process for me to go through, because like I would definitely have classified myself as someone who was more of a people pleaser, like not wanting to like rock the boat or not wanting to like be disliked. I think more just not wanting to be disliked.
Yeah, totally.
Or misunderstood. And the last show I did, which was called Apex Predator, it was like really polarizing. People either loved it or they really, really hated it.
Yeah.
And it was actually good for me to be in that situation and have people who like didn't like it and be like, well, I guess I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Like, sorry you don't like it. That's a shame. Like, and have to own it. That was very good for me as a person, I think. Like,
yeah. And I just like it in the sense of it's like finding your weirdos, in that sense that, like, if you're on the outside, it's easy to look and judge. But as soon as you see like people having fun with that's interesting, and then you get into it, you're like, no, these are my people now. And likewise, if you're doing a show that is possibly a little bit more polarizing, it's like, who cares if some people don't like it?
Yeah.
I really want to connect with the people who I know, like, who will love this on the other side of that spectrum.
And like, and I mean, there's the things where like, it's that fear again that we have of authenticity of like, oh, but I don't want to be myself because nobody likes me. And it's like, there's always going to be someone who doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Like, I can guarantee it. There's someone in the world who like won't like you. So, it is just that process, I guess. And for me, again, it's a process. Like, it's not something where I'm like, yeah, I just don't care if people don't like me anymore. Like, I still care. Like, I still give a fuck. But I'm working to not find it such a thing. Like, and I find the process of, making a show like that, doing a show like that, continuing with clown. I go to the park with my friends when we do those, like, play in the park sessions, and I am like rolling around the ground, yelling. Like, I can imagine people watching me like, who is that crazy? Like, who is that loser? Like,
yeah.
And I genuinely don't care at that point. And I'm like, I think that's really, it's such a free, nice place to be and spend some time being like, I don't care.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you wish you were having as much fun as me.
Yeah. It reminds me of an improv exercise, Alien Soulmate.
Oh, yeah, I know that one. Yeah. I remember the first time I did improv, I was like, why are you making me do this? And now I'm like, I love it.
And I find it so fun, like either running it with, introductory classes for people who are like single students signing up, or even at corporate sessions. And especially at corporate sessions, people, when they first see it, they're just like, absolutely no way I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You can see on their face just like, no, I'm not stepping in there. But then I think that's such a great exercise to get that kind of point across, that it takes a lot of courage to step out and do this thing that other people might judge and go, that's weird. But then as soon as you join, and you're just locked in with that person, it's like everything else just fades away. And it's such a nice feeling. And I feel like that's one of the sort of key exercises that people get that first little taste of, okay, I'm doing something that I might have judged previously, but now I'm doing it and I'm connecting with this person and this feels incredible. All right, maybe I can get on board this thinking and start sort of looking at things in that perspective. So you start looking at things that people are doing and going like, oh, that looks like fun. And I think it's, everyone has like that filter where it's like, I don't want people to know that I think that's fun because they might ridicule me.
Yeah.
But that genuinely looks really, really fun, which might have been as well when you were talking about talking to your friend about stand-up. And you're like, oh, I want to talk to them and say I want to do stand-up, but I don't want them to ridicule me. So I don't know. I'll go for it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's that thing, like that feeling that you're talking about that you get when you're just like, oh my God, it's that same thing where you're like, I'm bulletproof. Like nothing can hurt me. Like you realize that nothing can actually, other people's opinions can't hurt you. Like in that sense. And that, there's that sense, I guess, that impulsive authenticity. Like I think that's been a big process for me, like learning to be less heady and less in my head, less worried, and like just let the impulse come up and see what happens. Like even coming here, I was like, oh, what should I talk about? I was like, I'm just gonna see what happens. Like, but yeah, because you can get so controlled, and like there's this great meme I was looking at today of like, this is what you look like when you try and control everything, and it's a guy who's trying to mop up the ocean.
All right.
It's like dipping them up in the ocean and then in the bucket, and then there is a level like trying to let go of that control, and we're again conditioned to be like white knuckling it, like trying to like not do anything that would make us look stupid and not make mistakes. Like mistakes are terrifying in our culture. Like, oh God, so awful. No one wants to admit to them. And they just I know as well I would have big anxiety about like making the wrong decision. Like, what if I made a mistake? And it's like, I guess that's the thing in clown, particularly mistakes are often the thing where it's like, whoa, that really worked. And there's a lot of the games that as part of the clown training is like you're forced to make mistakes because the game is impossible.
Yeah.
And so because you can never be good at it, like the point is to make mistakes and to look stupid. Like, and that when you see people kind of getting that, they're like, what?
Yeah.
Because again, it's like topsy-turvy, like completely different to how we normally live. And like other stuff we'll do in clown training where it's like you we'll do an exercise called the 7 levels, which is like doing, I guess, like musical scales, but for your body, like for your levels of energy. So you go from like lying on the ground to like the most energy you could ever expend.
Yeah.
And so you sort of work through those levels. And it's so much fun to teach that because you get to see people like in this space, you can make as much noise as you want. You can go as crazy as you want. Like normally you're not allowed to do that. So use that time. Like use this time, like go crazy. And people are like, oh my God. And it's really fun watching people like that. They'll start with being like kind of shy or not really sure. And then they're like screaming and rolling around the room. Like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, that's in there. Think about the energy we expend containing that.
Yeah, totally.
All the time.
And how good it feels letting it come out.
Yeah.
There's another exercise, which is, I don't know the name of it, but it's like, I call it wizards. But you've got like 2 mountains basically. And so everyone's sort of paired up. And you've got like 2 mountains, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 meters away from each other. Mm-hmm. The idea is that you're a wizard on a mountain and you're dueling with each other.
Okay.
And how you sort of duel is you take it in turns and you'll kind of gather up the energy around you. And then once you feel it's a breaking point, you'll unleash that to the other person. The other person then has to be affected by it, which, you know, it might start with just like a small thing, but by the 4th, 5th round, they're like knocked over, rolling around on the ground. Then they're getting up like, and like really losing themselves into this kind of very like primal sort of state. And I feel like it's a similar thing to what you're talking about there, where it's just like actually just completely letting all this energy out and not being afraid to build it up and keep building and go, you know what, my limit's not here. I'm going to keep pushing. Yeah. I can do more. I can go more. I can go more. Oh shit, I didn't know I could go this far, but I could go further. Yeah. And then constantly just sort of pushing that. And it's just such a, like, I love exercise like that, which is sort of so simple in how the exercise is actually played out, but just so sort of, I think, powerful and rewarding once you go through them, and you feel amazing afterwards.
Yeah, it's a crazy feeling. You're just like, whoa. Well, because you've unleashed that, like, which is pent up and not expressed. Like, I found that as well. Like, I've been in a really bad mood at times. Like, it'll be before a show and something will have happened that's really stressful, or I won't be feeling well. Like, I got my period. I don't know. It'll be something where I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling great. Mm-hmm. Or like, I don't feel like I can do this. But if you go through that, like, warm up, that exercise, you get to a point where like, oh, I totally can.
Yeah.
Like you actually do. We often have a lot more energy than we think we do.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that like when I'm in my clown character, I can do like more push-ups than I can as myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, that's crazy. That's like a different person has the reins of the body.
Yeah.
And it can do more. Like
that's a good way to trick people into like working out more. Well,
you're just like, that's crazy. Like, there's like, but you've just unlocked something. There's these limitations that I have as myself that my clown doesn't have. Yeah.
Is that adrenaline, I guess, a little bit maybe sort of pushing through?
I think so. But I also think we just limit ourselves like a lot because we're like, oh, that's not something I do, or that's not something I would normally, I'm not able to do that. Yeah. And like,
that's a bit much.
Yeah.
That's a bit too much.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we don't really know our limits until we push them.
Yeah.
And they're finding a safe and fun way to do that.
Yeah.
You know, because I think people look for all different ways. Like maybe they do extreme sports or whatever to just see, you know.
Yeah.
Like feel alive. Yeah.
I prefer feeling alive in a performing stage context.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever like just gone skydiving or any?
Not personally. Yeah. I'm like, nah, I'll just like roll the dice and step out here in my red nose.
Yeah. That's the thrill that I get. So
I'm covered. But you know, I mean, we are looking for that. I think, yeah. So
Yeah.
that, I assume that's why people jump out of planes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I've never felt compelled to do it, but my wife has, and she took her dad to do it for I think his 60th or something like that. But to me, it would probably feel amazing because that's why, like, otherwise why do people do it?
Yeah.
But I'm too scared.
Yeah.
Right now, or I just feel like I don't feel like I need to do that. Whereas I feel like I need to go and perform, or I need to, you know, in that sort of sense. So
yeah, everyone's got a different itch to scratch, like, you know, or a different way of reaching it.
Yeah. I was curious. When you were sort of like growing up, like, you know, high school, middle school, all around that age, did you have interest in performing in any way then? Like, was that where there was some little seed planted at some stage?
Sort of, not like yes, but no, because like I was too scared.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really wanted to be funny and I really wanted to be the center of attention, but I was too self-conscious. And so I would avoid it. Like I remember once they were casting the school play and the teacher was like, do you want to audition for this part? And I was like, yeah, I did. And I just sat there for a while, like,
so
and
internally,
yeah, like,
Elizabeth, you're not saying anything.
Yeah, exactly. So like, yeah, I didn't end up doing it, but like, I did want to, so that was there. And I actually went, like, my first degree was in visual arts, so I was a visual artist. And I did that, and yeah, I haven't really done it since, and I'm kind of glad I didn't go straight to performing arts college in case it would have like killed that off, because I think sometimes university for a creative discipline like that can be a bad thing, because it is, again, like it's forcing that thing into that box ticking kind of world.
Like with assessments, due dates, all this sort of stuff.
And like and things like that. So it kind of stops you being free with what you were doing, I found, anyway. Like I know some people cruise through and don't let it bother them, but yeah, so then I didn't really do anything for a year or two, like nothing really creative, and then I got this thing that I really want to perform, like I need to do it. So yeah, but there's things like when I was little, I was told that I couldn't sing. Like I was told my singing voice was really bad, and so I was always really self-conscious about it.
It's lovely feedback to receive as a child.
Oh my God, right? Yeah, it was like and then but I actually use it in my shows now because it's bad. Like it's still bad. It's funny, I've done singing lessons, and it's like very off key. Like, but I sing close to the note, but not quite. Like I can't seem to get it right unless I'm singing in a funny voice, and then I can hit the notes.
Okay.
So if I'm kind of doing it in a stupid voice, I can sing okay, but as myself, no. And
so it's kind of like the push-up thing you were talking about before.
Yeah. There's some weird, like, you know, I have to give my brain a fidget cube, and it's like, oh, I have a funny voice, like, and then I can sing. And so, but yeah, I ended up using it in my shows, and it's been like really, really fun to just be like, yeah, I'm fucking bad at this, but it's really funny, like, and it's been pretty free to use it that way. So
now that's so nice, being like, I'm bad at this, but I don't care. Like, and you might still care a little bit, but you're like, yeah, it's an asset. I'm going to use it. I'm going to lean into it, and I'm going to have fun with it, even if I'm not what you would call, you know, skilled at this thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't do like an hour-long cabaret where I was only singing. Like, I think that would be stretching people's.
Well,
now
that I funny voice.
But yeah, so I think like, but yeah, it's been so much fun to use it. And I remember once after my show, some music students came up to me. And they were like, yeah, it's really hard to sing as badly as you did. Like we were talking about, you must have had training and stuff because it's like hard. And I was like, oh no, it's not. It's really easy.
Wait, where was this?
This was, I think, in Perth.
So this wasn't when you were a kid. This was recently.
No, this was after one of my shows. Yeah.
Okay,
some students came up to me afterwards and they were like, yeah, it's really hard to sing that bad.
Yeah. You're like, great. Any other thoughts on the show?
I'm like... natural.
Yeah. Are there any things that you haven't tried yet which have kind of piqued your interest a little bit?
Ooh, you mean in performance or?
Yeah, performance, or it could be beyond performance.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wide-ranging question, but
yeah, that's big. I I think I really love like mask work and that kind of performance, like going more into that physical theatre kind of disciplines and learning more about that. That's something I would love to do if I had more time. Like, because I think, yeah, mask is incredible. Like, it's again really freeing because there's no face.
Yeah.
So you're just working with the body and kind of building stuff off that.
Is that sort of a form of clown in a sense, or would you say that they're so distinct that
it sort of is, I guess? Like, I mean, they talk about a clown nose being the smallest mask.
Yeah.
So it is a level of mask. Like a clown is a mask, like to have that. But this is more like they can be different. Like some of them are like have an expression, and some of them really don't have much of an expression. They're kind of just a very provisional kind of gesture of a face.
Yeah.
And that can be really. It's usually more. They can be really, really funny, but they're often more like really. It can be really poignant and a lot of pathos and really beautiful. Like kind of. I guess more theatrical, like mask shows. Or actually, I would like to do more singing. Like I was like, I would like to try and sing seriously one day.
Yeah.
Like I need to work on that with my friend who's my singing teacher. Like actually put in some time and like sing properly.
Yeah.
Properly, but sing seriously. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You said you would never do the 60-minute cabaret show, but
well, maybe now I have to.
Maybe it's on the horizon.
I'll start with 5 minutes. Yeah. I know very well myself. Yeah.
A type 5 singing wise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll learn one song.
Yeah,
and then we'll see how we go. Yeah. Yeah, I think I always love hearing the backstory of like how people got to where they are, or like. Yeah, and I wanted to say that as well. Like I love hearing when people are like, oh yeah, I still get nervous, or I still get this. Like it's really nice to hear that and be like, yeah.
Oh, it's so reassuring, especially for a student, or anyone, because like I could see you perform. I see you do a clown show, and I'm like, oh, Elizabeth's so great. As if she'd ever get nervous, like. So, and then just to hear like, no, I still get nervous about this. I have this. Here are my.
Oh yeah, here's how bad I was when I started. Like,
yeah.
Check it out. Like.
Yeah, and it's like it's just so nice hearing that aspect about performers. Like in some ways, it's like, am I making the podcast here that I just want to listen to?
Well, I guess that's all you can really do, right?
Yeah, I think that's like if you aim for that, then there's going to be some authenticity to it.
I just did a shiatsu intensive, like a workshop with a teacher from the UK. And he worked a lot with Keith Johnson in the, I think, 70s or 80s. Like, he knew all about improv. And he's like, oh, yeah. And, like, had worked elements of that into his practice. Like, so there's just, like, I don't know, there's just so many connections. And, like, looking at in clown, like, the things of, like, the way you move or the way... Because, like, doing my show changed my posture. Like, I stood differently after. Like, I see photos of myself, and I'm like, that was before and that was after.
Yeah.
Like, I can actually see the difference.
Your physio's like, wow, what have you been doing?
Yeah, literally. Like, my psychologist was like, whatever, keep doing it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like, it can be so therapeutic working through that kind of stuff. Because, like, the thing that can come up in your clown is, like, things that you want to work on, like your subconscious, like the shadow aspects, things that you don't own, things you're scared to own. Like my clown's really high status, isn't worried about anything.
Yeah,
it's totally not what I feel like most of the time. Like she's just like really does not give a fuck.
Yeah,
and is having the time of her life. And like, but yeah, being high status and kind of aggressive, like that's her vibe. And so that like coming through was like healing for me to play.
Yeah,
and there's this thing like that if you don't play your shit, it plays you. So if you can put those kind of feelings or that kind of stresses or those like elements of yourself, like if you can put that into play, it's a way of owning them and integrating them. Yeah, that's been my experience of it. So yeah, it's really, really cool and just all the different ways there are to do that and the ways that people get to where they are. And I don't know,
it reminds me a bit when you're talking about that of like when people cosplay, for example. They're like, why are you dressed up as this character? And you're like, oh, because she's this, she represents this. And I feel like it's a similar sort of thing where it's like it's maybe attributes that you secretly on some level wish you were more of, and then being able to like bring that out through a character feels easier than actually being like, you know what, I'm just going to be high status now.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's like, but it's kind of like your own cosplay. Like you're cosplaying your shadow self.
Yeah,
the things that you're afraid of. Like, But yeah, and that's the thing as well. They say about things like puppets. Like puppets can say stuff that you can't.
Yeah.
So characters can say things that you can't. Like I have a character in my other show, Superwoman, where it's like, oh, the stuff she says, like it's like so outrageous. The concept of that show was that I was sent this letter by my super company about the gender super gap, being like, oh, as a woman, you retire with 50% less. And
so this was a real letter that was sent?
Real letter that I was sent in 2015. And it was like, here's some tips. We've put together 300 handy tips to help you save money for your retirement. And it was things like, reusing your tea bags, buying cheaper makeup, like avoiding divorce was one of the tips.
This is a super company sending you this?
My super company that I've since left, obviously. But yeah, my super company sent me this letter and with these 300 tips. And I obviously, I think most people wouldn't have bothered to read them, but I was like, something about it pissed me off, like the way it was phrased. And it was like a woman with a piggy bank, like in the image. And so I dug into it and I read all these tips and I was like, this is a show. Like, so I built 5 minutes around it and then I fleshed that out and that became the show. And so I had a character that was like, sort of leading the seminar, who was called Superwoman. So she was the I guess the stand-in for the super company, like or that general voice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff she said was from their website.
Right.
And it was so outrageous. What was one of the things she said? She was like, just for giving that tip, she's like, avoid divorce. Like, it's one of the things you should do, ladies. Can't afford to be a negative Nelly in this economy.
Yeah.
And so, that was something where it was just like, but she can say that stuff. Whereas if I said it, I'd sound like it would be different.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. I love that too. Like that show is like co-written by super company.
Yeah, exactly. Literally, I called the program. Their program was called the Superwoman Money Program. Yeah, and that's what I call my show.
Oh, right, awesome.
I googled it. You can't copyright a title.
Yeah,
so I was like, fucking sick. Now when anyone googles that, they'll find me.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those things you hear that and you're like, why did they send that out and think that would be? Oh, this is a really good thing we need to do here.
I know. Well, it was funny because they took it down. Like I think I got into the Australian, and a few other things like media outlets and stuff, and then it disappeared.
Someone's taking the piss out of our genuine tips for women. What's going on?
I know. But then obviously someone had been like on a deadline. I got to find content and was like Googling tips to not save money.
Yeah.
And not really thinking about how that comes across of about structural inequality.
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to we're not going to do anything about that, obviously. But we could tell you maybe you should shop at Aldi and that would help.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
To me, it seems like a similar thing of, if you're talking about, I don't know, like carbon emissions or recycling or all that sort of stuff, and you're telling everyone it's like, well, you've got to do this with your bottle caps now, and then you've got private jets flying around and
totally
all these things, and it's like, what's the bigger thing that you could maybe deal with first?
Yeah, it's a distraction because it's if you're worried about your bottle caps, you're not going to be thinking about 70% of the world's emissions or 100% are made by 10 companies, or 100 companies. Yeah, you just distracted.
Totally. I love that so much. If that sounds like something that someone would put together in Chat GPT now, with 300 tips for women to save on super.
Yeah.
And then the AI is like, well, I reckon the AI would do a better job.
Probably, actually, yeah.
Or maybe you'll turn around and go don't like this phrasing of this question. Give me something else and I'll work on that with you.
Even the AI would say no. Yeah, totally.
Thanks very much for listening. If you would like to keep up to date on future episodes, please consider subscribing. And for more information on what we're doing, our future workshops, and everything else we're up to, please head to spaceandearth.co.